Okay, we're set. Hi, Angela. Welcome.
Hello, Eric. Thank
Welcome to
you.
this chat group where it doesn't have a name, but let's just call it Eric's chat group.
Eric's chat. Sounds good.
Yeah, no, it's good to connect. And I guess for people out there to be transparent, I was a coachee of Angela's. And then, I found it very, very helpful, just to have that's someone else to kind of bring out what's already in you and to really help you well, in my case, help me to problem solve certain situations that I had at work. So, Angela, I guess just to start things off, like how did you get into your profession? Like, was there a pivotal moment in your life and career that led you to what you're doing right now? Yeah, curious to see if you could
Mm.
share that.
Well, it's a long story, of course, but keeping it short, I was looking for something to do in Hong Kong. I was
Yeah,
really into personal development. This was in 2000, and coaching was not well known at all. And then, first of
yeah,
all, someone told me, "Oh, I was doing an NLP training, and someone said, you could help other people with this work, and there's a name for that. It's called a coach." And I thought that sounded great, but then I couldn't take any steps forward until I discovered Coach U, and the main thing was the business model, because then I understood, I can charge people for this. I can make a living. 'Cause it seems like something friends do for friends. But the thing is, the world is so much more sophisticated now, and there's a lot of sophistication in coaching. Actually, now I've been in this career for 24 years,
yeah.
so I'm very different than I was when I
Would
started.
you be able to kind of categorize like what would be like sort of that like past 10 years? What were like the trends like like
Yes, well,
today? You know?
when I started coaching, there was a kind of a thing like, don't go into the emotions. That's not our thing. That's for counselors. And don't go into the past. And coaching was really mostly about the mental, which is very useful, like to be able to have a thinking partner, and also to realize different ways of thinking about things, values, beliefs, needs, can all be dealt with in a thinking level. But what I very quickly discovered is that most people, where they get really stuck, the most important stuck places are emotional.
Yeah.
And so a coach needs to be able to deal with those as well. And there were always methodologies, but now, I mean, it's really a must. Before it was kind of like, oh no, we don't do that. And there was almost this assumption like only people who have mental illness have emotional problems, which is totally not emotional problems, but emotional
I like
blocks.
the coaching in that kind of early phase is like, well, setting emotions aside, how can I
Yes,
help you with XYZ?
yes, yes. And there is a lot
And then
that you
now it's like what? Let's embrace it. Let's let's
yes,
unpack
let's
that.
go
Let's
there
unpack.
first because that's the biggest leverage points often. Yeah. And then in my own journey, it was first there was a lot of methodologies, assessment tools, frameworks. And then as I progress more and more, I find out that it's actually cultivating the self. Like, so if I personally can be with strong emotions and not lose it, then I can be more and more useful to other people. So I can be calm and collected, and even as they tell me whatever, right? And I can still be present and not shutting away the emotions, but being with the emotions of others.
Yeah,
It's deep listening.
yeah. How would you describe like who would be the type of like from your experience, like which profile are like probably maybe reluctant to seek help at first, but probably like needs it the most. You know, from your perspective.
Why would you ask that question?
I don't know. I think I was one.
Really?
I think I was one. You know,
Huh.
I think being raised as a from a maybe from an Asian society, like
Mm.
we've been told to like just, don't ask for help, don't appear weak, et
Mm.
cetera, et cetera. So I think I'm one. I think I was one.
Mm.
But I'm just wondering, are there kind of more kind of personas and avatars that you see of people that where you're like, you know what, maybe you could benefit from this.
Yeah, I don't look that way. Maybe I used to, but I know I'm looking for the people who have potential to learn through coaching. That's a lot
Probably.
more interesting, right? Not so much the people that are never going to have it.
And
Yeah.
what's the ABCs of that? How do you determine whether someone has potential?
Well, um, actually, I don't really analyze or determine that. All I do is listen, and then I find out. I mean, the most rewarding thing for me is to open my heart to people that I don't understand. So sometimes I have a new potential coachee, and it's like, wow, this person is difficult or unpleasant or confusing or is operating at a pace I can't relate to. Uh-oh, you disappeared. I hope that's nothing.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm wondering which side is it on. I'm still here.
um, yeah, so lost my train of thought there. Oh.
That's okay. It's okay. We still have around 24 minutes. Take your time.
Yeah, so it is very rewarding to me to listen to people that are different. Yeah, because I find myself expanding when that happens, because I have to expand enough to include, other people's life experiences and emotions, and, personas, and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Angela, I'm actually going to close down some of the apps that I think might be stealing bandwidth from you. See if that would help.
Okay.
Yeah. And like, I think, I guess just switching gears a little bit, like you might have seen the news that it's just like 2024 is a brutal year, especially in both the creative technology industries, there's like layoff after layoffs. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And like, how could like someone, gosh, like how could someone even like, start to like maybe bounce back from that, or maybe not bounce back, like like what would be like that first step, like we just like,
Bounce forward, hey?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
like what should I do if I'm like affected by like one of these like layoffs and
Well, there's on the personal level, I know it can be really tough, because people are relying on jobs they have to support themselves and their families,
yeah,
and it's really tough. And so, but the thing is that I think that it's time. It's past the time of avoiding this reckoning. I really do feel like we're coming into the reckoning with the unsustainable lifestyle that the whole world has been living. And eventually the civilization winds down and closes. That's what I think is happening now. And so how do each of us thrive through that process of
yeah.
closing?
Well, I
Yeah.
think let's unpack that, and I think this kind of segues to the whole degrowth kind of journey and research that
Yeah.
you're going through. Um, would you be able to share like what that's all about, like and what are some kind of potential learnings that one
Mm.
can learn from it? Yeah, first of all,
Mm.
how did you get to that kind of or what triggered you to kind of do that research?
Right. Well,
What?
from a personal development level, um, what I've learned is that it's really, really useful to accept what's happening. So, like if I'm facing an emotion, I'm angry, I'm upset, I can just set that aside and suppress it. I've learned to do that. But in the long run, that doesn't help me because I'm not seeing fully. It's not intelligent. There's some intelligence in the stress. So there's some intelligence in the job losses, in the closing of industries, or the change. There's some, like COVID, had some intelligence to it, even though it was so brutal and difficult. But it also was wise in a way. And so,
What do you mean by that? The intelligence or wise in some ways?
well, it's like if it's physics. Like if the tide is always going in, then the whole place will be flooded. The tide also has to go out. And so if we are always taking more from the earth than the earth provides, then eventually there's going to be a reckoning. And so the pandemic was one of those, because the health of our whole community, the health of the world human community is declining, and many other animals too, because we're stripping the resources from nature. And
Wow,
so the
I never
reckoning.
thought of that. So there are these kind of checks and balances, you think?
Yes.
And then if I'm kind of interpreting what you're saying from a layman's terms, do you think it seems like, I think what you're implying is that you think all these layoffs is an adjustment that's needed through, I don't know what you call it, like the glutton that's accumulated
Yes.
the past couple of years,
Yes.
or like
Grow, right? Bigger, bigger, more and more. We need more stuff, selling more and more. And it has to end eventually. And because unfortunately we're not wise enough to end it ourselves, and so that's why nature will come into balance naturally. And you can personify that, like God is mad at us, but it's not. It doesn't have to be thought of that way. It's just it's nature. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, jeez. So we're going through a reset of some sort right now, then, eh?
Yes. And so my personal strategy is to accept that, not fight that. And so that means that, but then also know that I can be happy, and
Yeah. Who says that happy means more and more? Like, who says that you cannot be happy with just cutting a few things here and there?
Actually, oftentimes less is more in that way, right? Happiness does not come from big wealth.
Mm-hmm.
We need sufficiency for sure, but then we can readjust, and I think that's the wise thing to do, is to readjust, to need less. One of the programs I always helped my clients with when in especially early years of my coaching, and always would come along later too, was the so-called need less program, which is like, how can you identify what you actually need and then cease to need it? The way you cease to need it is by getting more than enough. So if someone really needs recognition, right? Like, I just have to be recognized. I don't feel good enough unless other people see me. Then that is a process that we can go to until we realize, oh, actually, I don't need that. I'm good enough as I am. And so this is a very useful process, because then we become empowered as we are. We don't need the fancy car or the vacations or the big house or even a small house to be recognized.
And why is that? Like, why is that? Like, why have we developed this, I don't know, like wrong way of thinking? Like, more is necessary, better. Like,
Well, why? One of the reasons is because of the economic system. Because the economic system insists on growth. And so then anyone who's operating within that system needs to encourage growth. So we want people to buy more stuff, right? That's how our companies grow. And so therefore, how much marketing is there in the world about what you need?
Yeah.
And then also how to psychologically manipulate people to thinking that they need things, versus the opposite. How much marketing in the world is there to say it's okay, you don't need any of that stuff? There's very, very little.
Wow. I think that's an interesting new business. What business are you in? I'm in the business of telling people that
They don't need anything.
I'll put in $1. I'll put in $1 for that. I'll buy that for $1. Well, yeah, isn't that fascinating, then? Wow. Yeah, I never thought that we'll kind of reach the stage where it's time to kind of examine kind of what's going. I actually went through something similar recently. Where I decided to just to track my finance, track all my expenses for like a month, and then turns out that, oh, hang on a second, like you know I only really need X per month. Why the heck have always thought I needed Y? Like, and that was what I kind of took away from the exercise. So I think that's just one example
Yeah.
of how maybe one should really challenge one's kind of assumptions,
Yes.
of what one needs.
Yes. And then in this time of inevitable shrinking of resources, because we've been taking too much, we've been taking more than there is. So I don't know, I'm not predicting what time scale this will happen on, but it seems inevitable that it'll happen. So it makes a lot of sense to get ahead of the curve, I think.
Well, not to be like all Nostradamus about it, but like, how long do you think this correction's going to go on for, Angela?
Like I said, I have no idea.
Oh my goodness. But hey, we should take the optimistic view that it is.
Well,
nature.
one of the things I've been thinking to myself is that if there's a choice of economic collapse or environmental collapse, I'd take the economic. And that means that we need the trouble with it, the difficulty is that it's so uneven. It's very, very uneven. And even ecological collapse, I mean, the losses happening now is affecting the rich people less than anyone else. Yeah, because they can afford their air conditioning and they can afford to go to different places to escape whatever. Whereas, most people can't. And many people have very, very few choices around resourcing themselves, even getting water or finding a peaceful place to live. Yeah, so I think,
That's
yeah,
so
we're
fascinating.
lucky.
I just, you always, well, at least in my world anyway, I grew up that, there's always an authority figure. There might be politicians or there might be like economists that kind of governs the science and stuff. But then I think littles talk about how like nature can also like govern, right?
It does.
The law of
Yeah.
nature
Yeah.
could override any like government or like financial institutions.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Eventually it will, right? We don't survive without air and water.
Yeah.
So, and food and shelter.
It's like looking
Yeah.
at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like it's
Mm.
now we're getting reset to just work on the basics.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, is it a cycle? It's like, do you think like we're gonna go back to like excess again and then it gets corrected and go back to excess again?
So I remember must be about 7-8 years ago reading this book. Forget the name now, but it was about exactly those cycles. And he was looking at the Roman Empire and seeing how it collapsed. And he was saying, hey, we're getting there. That was at like 2017 or 2016 or something like that. And he was looking at all the similarities to the way our society is now and the Roman Empire, like expanding beyond the capacity to resource. And back then, I think the resource was wheat that fed slaves or something like that, right? So very, very different. Our society is all about fossil fuels, and so yeah, I think it's of course inevitable. Yeah, every society will come up and down, And we hope that it's a spiral, that each time we learn something. And I think we can see that too, that life develops. Humans evolve just like any other animal.
Hmm. Any practical
I
tips?
also I also remember reading that, the Dark Ages, the so-called Dark Ages, that was another book I read. The so-called Dark Ages are only the times when we don't have much concrete evidence, right? So the Golden Ages are the ones where they build empires and castles and pyramids. And we know what happened because all of the soft stuff is gone. And there was a kind of a sense, this name Dark Ages was given to those times where we don't know what happened, where all the concrete development collapsed. But actually, it's just absolutely an assumption that those times were not good somehow. They're labeled dark. Maybe they were even better times to live. I think in many ways, we have just as much potential now to live good lives as ever, maybe more because of the change,
Yeah.
because of the challenge.
Okay. Well, what are some of the kind of practical advice can you give someone to kind of, practice degrowth?
Be grateful for what you have. Yeah. Um, and need less, practice having less stuff, avoiding buying things, making do, so called, with less and enjoying it, finding joy in the more basic things. Time is, in a way, free.
I wish I
Um,
could tell that to my 4-year-old daughter who keep insisting me to take her to Legoland.
Take her to Legoland. Yes, yes. So the
Like, we,
kids are so manipulated, right, by the world of marketing. Yeah, just all of us were. Yeah, and are still. Yeah. Yeah, and then talk to people about it. I think that's something really good to do because I've noticed that, in Hong Kong nowadays, when people talk about the economy, it's a bit of a secret. We're not supposed to say that actually I'm struggling financially. Actually, I'm not making as much money as I was before. Actually, my business is going badly. And I think that's a bit of a lost opportunity, to be honest. And then to invite others to be honest. And the more we're honest, then the more we can be intelligent about it. Yeah, instead of kind of covering it with something that doesn't make sense.
yeah, I would think like, like with Asian culture so concerned of face, that concept might not be an easy one, right? Like you
It's
gotta.
very difficult, yeah. And not just in Asia. Yeah, and like this idea of the self-sufficiency, it was certainly in the culture I grew up in Canada as well. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Well, excellent. So I guess just for kind of people out there who are listening to this, like, what are you working on these days that you would like to, maybe share, and then where can people find you?
Yes. Um, what I'm working on, many, many things. I'm very excited about Insight Dialogue, which is a Buddhist practice, which is a listening practice. And it's really about building community through honesty and real listening. So that's one. Another one is conscious dance, which is another way to express ourselves, be real with each other. Um, yeah, so I'm involved in a community where we dance in Hong Kong every Monday night, different
Oh,
themes. The theme the coming Monday is letting go. So that's
okay.
about bringing it into the body. Dance, music, right? Eric, you should be there. So it's free form dance. So it's a way of developing ourselves as feeling safe with ourselves and with each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm coaching. I'm doing leadership coaching.
Yeah, what's the best place for people to find you?
Probably on LinkedIn. Yeah, because I kind of put all my worlds together basically in LinkedIn
Yeah,
sometimes. It's the
yeah,
only social media I'm on now,
yeah.
thankfully. And then my website is spaxman.com.hk. That's another way to
Nice,
find me.
nice. And then let's say if this like who would be the type where you'd be interested to talk to, like apart from people who are interested in maybe kind of degrowth, like who would be the type of person that you think you might be able to help out with?
Well, the type of people I would love to meet would be those leaders, business leaders, entrepreneurs who want to be in the cutting edge of society. Yeah, which is degrowth. Yeah. So how are we going to do that? We need the smartest minds, and I would love to be a supporter of that, as I do help people see clearly, help people break through their emotional blocks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, thank you,
People
Angela.
like you, Eric.
I was waiting for that the whole time. We're waiting for our chat. No, just kidding. Angela, thank you so much for the chat, and it's always a pleasure. And hope to be able to see you in person and see how we can further discuss this topic of growth together.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric.
No worries. We end the recording now.